side conversations are done. Thank you. All right. We started this unit with just order of operations, and then we talked about simplifying expressions. We did evaluating, plugging values in, and solving. And then we kind of combined it all, and then we did solving one-step and two-step equations. So this includes all of that. Okay, so we're going to look here starting. I'm just going to go in order, and we'll see what we have time for if we get through it all before lunch. Then if we don't, when we get back, y'all can ask specific questions, but I have a different plan for the second half of class after lunch. So we're not spending the entire class doing this. All right, so simplifying, remember we are combining like terms. Okay, so here I've got two p terms, a +3 and a +8. And I've got two constant terms. So numbers that don't have variables are going to come together. Okay, so if you need to combine those in your calculator, you can, but that comes out to 11p and +50. That's as far as you can take it. That's all you have to do. Okay, so the simplifying are probably, I think, the simplest ones. Okay, so we combined what was in yellow and what was in blue, and you're done. Okay, now the solving types of questions, you have to isolate the variable. We're trying to get the variable by itself. So in this case, it's the b. We're trying to get this b by itself. So the first step is always to move the constant, if there is one. So in this case, it is -12. So to move that, we move by opposite operation. So I'm going to add 12, and what I do to one side, I do to the other. If you need to have the line drawn down your equation to separate the left and right, you can do that. So that's going to leave us with b over 5, because the 12s eliminate, equals 20. Now, your next step is to do the multiplication or division to get rid of the coefficient. In this case, we have a divided by 5. So what's the opposite? I hope you know the opposite of divide. We have a test tomorrow. Multiply. So we're going to multiply to get rid of that 5. And what you do to one side, you do to the other. Okay, if you want to show the multiplication with a dot, you can, or you can do parentheses. That means the same thing. Okay, so we isolated b. We got b by itself, and it came out to equal 100. Now, on your test tomorrow, show as much work as possible, because I'll be grading with partial credit. If all you do is give me b equals 100 and you got it wrong, it's all wrong. You lose all the points. But if you showed me, hey, I know that I'm supposed to move this over by addition, and I know I'm supposed to move this by division, and you just messed something up in the calculator, I'll give you partial credit. You'll get most of the points because you did the steps correctly. You just made an error in calculation. So you can get partial points if you show work, okay? And like on number 1, there wasn't really work to show, but I highlighted. Highlighting was showing my work. You could have underlined the ones that you're combining or circled the ones that you're combining. So that is showing work. So if you show that on your test, I can give you some points even if you get the final answer wrong. Okay, so just make sure you are showing as much work as possible. All right, so here's another two-step solving. So we want to isolate the x. So we want to move the constant first. So we are going to subtract 1 from both sides, which leaves us with 12x equals -49. Just get out your review that you got yesterday, okay? We're going over it. All right, and then we are going to divide out the coefficient. This is 12 times x, so this time the opposite is to divide. Okay, so I'm going to do 49 divided by 12. That doesn't divide evenly, so you can use your calculator. Now, here is where it gets tricky. Not your calculators, the 4 function calculators do not have this plus minus button. So you need to either know that a negative divided by a positive is a what? What is your answer going to be? If it's a negative divided by a positive, it's going to be negative. If you are multiplying or dividing opposite signs, your answer is going to be negative. If they're the same sign, so they're both positive or they're both negative, then when you're multiplying or dividing, you would get a positive. Okay, but in this case, I know it's going to be negative. So I'm just going to do the 49 divided by 12, okay, and we get 4.083 repeating. Okay, so I'm just going to round that to 4.08. Okay, if you want to write the 3 repeating, I did not mean to open that, go away. You can, but I'm rounding that answer. All right, let's see. Evaluate. So evaluate, when you see that term, evaluate means that you are plugging numbers in. Okay, so I'm going to take these values. They're telling me A is 6. So when I see that A, I'm going to replace it with a 6. They tell me B is -3. So I'm going to replace the B with -3. And they tell me C is -2. So I'm going to replace, oops, I'm going to replace just the C, not that minus, the C with -2. Still is over highlighting. Come on, just this little piece, please. There we go. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to do that substitution. Okay, evaluate means we're substituting. So we've got the 5, and then I'm going to substitute A and C and B. So I'm going to plug into all 3 of those. So C is going to go here. A. Okay, so that is 6 here. -2 here and -3 here. All of the other the signs that you already see in the equations stay the same. So that stays a minus. Now it's order of operations. So now it goes back to day 1, order of operations. So we do multiplication before division, or I'm sorry, multiplication before subtraction. Okay, so this is all getting multiplied. So 5 times 6 is 30, and 30 times -2 is -60. Okay, in your calculator, what that would look like is you would have to do 5 times 6 and get an answer, and then you would have to do that answer, 30 times 2. You can't type in -2, so you're going to get 60. You have to know your signs. Okay, you have to know that that's going to come out negative. And then here, a negative times a negative is going to be positive, so that's going to be +3. And then I can do -60 plus 3. I cannot type -60 in my calculator. So the 3 is positive, so I might do 3 minus 60. Okay, which is -57. If you absolutely have to have a negative, if you don't know that you can do that backward, then you can just do 0 minus 60 to get you that -60, and then you can add the 3 to that and get the -57. So you have some options. If you absolutely need to start with a negative, you can always do 0 minus whatever that number is to get that negative in your calculator. All right, so then another simplify. Okay, so this one is order of operations. There's no variables here. So we are having to follow our parentheses, exponents, then multiply, divide, then add, subtract. So there are no parentheses here, but there are exponents. Okay, so I need to do this exponent and this exponent first. So 2 squared is 4, bless you. And 4 squared is 16. Bless you. Everything else stays the same. Now I've got addition, multiplication, and subtraction. So multiplication comes first. So I have to do the 8 times 16, which is 128. So I've got 4 plus 128. Can you please stop talking? Thank you. So I'm going to do 4 plus 128 minus 78 in my calculator and get 54. Okay, so your whole first page should be checked and correct. And again, you are showing work. Show work, show work, show work. Okay, you can get partial credit on the test with your work. All right, here's another simplify. Actually, that shouldn't say simplify. That should say evaluate because they're giving us numbers to plug in. Okay, so I'm going to plug in G is 10 and H is -4. Now, when I go to plug this in, these are absolute value bars. You keep those there. So I'm plugging in a 10. I always use parentheses when I'm plugging in. Sometimes it's extra, but sometimes it's important, and it would change it if I didn't. All right, so I've got everything plugged in where it goes. I plugged in -4 for H, and I plugged in 10 for G. So now it's order of operations. Okay, so remember that your absolute value bars fall into grouping with parentheses so that you do what's inside the absolute value first before you do any like multiplying or adding of numbers. Okay, now inside this absolute value is just a 10. So that's just going to be absolute value of 10. Inside this absolute value, there's -4 minus 3, which gives us -7. So now I have to take the absolute value of both of those before I do the addition. So the absolute value of 10 is 10, and then I've got a plus sign. And then the absolute value of -7, remember absolute value is the distance from 0. It always comes out positive. So -7 is 7 units from 0. So it's just +7. So then I add and get 17. This one is simplify. We need to distribute. We've got 2 sets of parentheses here to distribute. New coefficient that needs to be distributed. So 2 times A. We've got over here another set of parentheses, and this -3, that whole thing, the negative included, needs to be distributed. So -3 times 9 is -27, and -3 times A is -3A. All right, so then we've got to combine like terms. So again, if you don't have highlighters, here's what I do. I just would circle or underline what I'm combining. So I'm going to combine my A terms together. So 2A minus 3A is -1A. Remember, when your coefficient is a 1, you don't have to write it. And then I've got a constant and another constant. So I'm going to put those together. So 14 minus 27, and you can do that in your calculator if you need to. We get -13. And that's as far as I can take it for simplifying, because I don't know what A is. They didn't give it to us. So we're not evaluating. We're just simplifying there. Okay, on 8, we, again, when you have that division bar written as a fraction, that is also a grouping method. It's grouping the top together and it's grouping the bottom together. So we have to do the top and bottom separately, and then at the very end, we'll do the division. Okay, so on top, order of operations, we've got to do exponents first. So we've got 6 minus 5, and then plus, and then 3 squared is 9. On the bottom, it's just division. 4 divided by 2 is 2. Now on the top, that's just addition and subtraction now, so I can simplify on the top, and I get 10. And I get 2 on the bottom. Now that I've done the top and bottom separately, now I can divide. So 10 divided by 2 is 5. So make sure you are showing this work that you're doing. You can get lots of points, even if you get the final answer wrong. If you, until you make a mistake, you'll get some points. Okay, but I can't see where you made your mistake if you don't show any work. All right, on number 9, another simplify. So we're going to combine like terms. Remember, like terms have the same variables, so letters, the same letters, to the same powers, the same exponents. So here, this first term has an A. There is no other term that has just A. So there's nothing to combine it with. So it stays 7A. That does not change. Now this next term has AB. There is another AB term. So we have 8 and 12, which is positive 20, AB. And then the 3B, there's no other term that's just B, so it stays as is, negative 3B. That's as much as I can do. There's nothing else to combine. There's no numbers to plug in and evaluate. That's it. That's all they're asking for. All right, last but not least, we have a perimeter question. Who remembers what that means? What is the perimeter? Perimeter means what? Nobody knows? I feel like some of y'all do. Y'all can speak up. What is perimeter? What's perimeter? Okay, so you add up all the sides. So we're going to take all 4 sides added together. All sides added together. Okay, now they tell us that it's a rectangle because they don't have all 4 sides labeled. But if it's a rectangle, what do you know about the opposite sides? The sides across from each other are what? They're the same. So even though they didn't label this side, I know that this side is also V minus 5. Okay, same thing here. Even though they didn't label this top side, I know that it's 2V plus 13. Because it's a rectangle, those opposite sides, I know they're the same. So there's 2 ways that you could set this up. You could set this up by writing all of that out together. So you could write 2V plus 13 plus 2V plus 13, because there's 2 of those, plus V minus 5 plus V minus 5. So you can write it all out like that. Okay, and then combine like terms. So I've got all these V terms. So that's 2, 4, 5, 6V. And then all my constant terms. So 13 and 13 is 26, minus 5, minus 5. So that's 16. And that's it in the simplest form. That's as far as we can go because we don't know V. Your other option, or instead of writing it all out added together, you know there's 2 lengths and 2 widths. So you could have done 2 times V minus 5 plus 2 times 2V plus 13. So you could have set it up this way and done your distribution and gotten 2V minus 10 plus 4V plus 26. And then if you combine those like terms, you can get the same answer. get the same thing either way that you set that up. All right, y'all have a good lunch.